Republican Seniors of Minnesota, a group of seasoned seniors that learn and discuss issues important to all Minnesotans, featuring guest speakers with traditional conservative values, plus Republican candidates at all levels, pledging strength and optimism. We believe in and advocate for the principles of personal responsibility, economic prosperity, peace through strong national defense, and limited, sensible government. Republican Seniors of Minnesota. It's not the years in your life, but the life in your years.
For coming this morning. And a very special welcome as well to those attending via our video live stream. I'm Terry Flower. I'm the chair of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota, and I'm proud to be with you all today. This meeting is being live streamed today by our volunteers from livestreampros.net, and they do a bang-up job. You can view their live stream on our website or on our YouTube channel, and you and other watch parties as well can watch it on any smart TV with internet access. So we want to make sure we say hello to those watching live stream. So let's all say a big hello. Hello! All right. Good. Let's see. By the way, this baseball cap, you can get one like this after the meeting in the back of the room. I attended the State Central Committee meeting and the Republican convention up in Duluth, and I wore this cap. And let me tell you, I was stopped by people I didn't know. I'm serious. Maybe a dozen people, maybe even 24 total people I didn't know. They stopped me. I was wearing that baseball cap, and they said, I saw you on TV. So they saw you guys. They saw this group, and I think the live streaming really helps get the word out. I think that's important. And one of the things I also say, guys, this is a chick magnet. No, seriously, but people do come up and talk to you because you're wearing that hat, that red hat with the white lettering. It shows you're pro-Trump as well. And I'll tell you one thing, the people commented, at what a great group of folks attend this meeting, and they commented, and this is especially for you, Brad and Patty, they commented on the quality of the video and the clarity of the sound. So and that's all thanks to you, because you support it and make it work. I'd like to, if you'll join me in an opening prayer, I'll read the invocation. Gracious God, our Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer, be with us this morning as we share fellowship with those around us, as we interact with our speakers and fellow Republicans, and we learn from each other. We pray that you be with the candidates endorsed at our recent convention, giving them the strength and courage to win their respective elections this fall. Give us the wisdom and strength we will need to support our candidates in every way possible. And then, Lord, let our interest in campaigns and candidates be clearly focused so we can help our nation return to the path that ultimately serves you and your interests. Father, bless us, guide us as we celebrate our nation's 250th anniversary this year. We pray, honoring your holy name. Amen. we'd like to acknowledge our military veterans, our active, retired police officers, firefighters, and other first responders. Will you all please rise and be recognized? God. Okay. And now will the rest of you please stand as you are able and join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'd like to take a few moments to recognize and honor those who are celebrating birthdays, anniversaries, or any other special lifetime event. Is there somebody maybe visiting you, your family out of town? Okay, Lucy there. Yeah.
I will be 84 next Monday. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Lucy. Anybody else? Well, thank you, and we'll move on. By the way, when we do give you opportunities to talk, please thank you for waiting for the microphone. That way, everybody can hear, even our friends online. We do have some announcements coming up here.
Here are today's notable announcements for you, the Republican seniors of Minnesota. Minnesota's fraud problem made national headlines as criminals took advantage of our state's generous welfare programs and lax oversight to steal billions of taxpayer dollars. Join American Experiment's fraud expert Bill Glann as he follows the money and connects the dots in this historic chapter of Minnesota history. Locations and dates are on the screen, or visit americanexperiment.org/events for details. Do you love a parade? Last year, the Minneapolis Republican Party participated in a variety of parades and fairs around the Twin Cities. This year, we are doing even more. There are plans to participate in the Northeast Parade on June 16th from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Parades are wonderful opportunities to increase our visibility in Minneapolis and let Republicans know they are not alone. If you would like to help and/or participate, email us at info@mplsgop.org. Keep an eye on the event calendar at mplsgop.org. Minnesota Mao, a sobering film documentary offering a cutting look at the strange connections between Governor Tim Walz, also known as Minnesota Mao, and Chinese Chairman Mao Zedong. The Bloomington premiere takes place June 16th, starting at 6:15 p.m. at the Bloomington Event Center, 1114 American Boulevard West. Admission is free and sponsored by RFABB, Residents for a Better Bloomington. Visit rfabbmn.org for further information. The Conservative American PAC is holding the annual Hog Roast Dinner, Saturday, June 20th, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Chanhassen American Legion. Come and enjoy a pulled pork dinner with all the sides. Guest MC, Representative Walter Hudson, will be hamming it up along with other Minnesota candidates. So be sure to make this a must-do event on your calendar. Visit conservativeamericanpac.com for information and registration. And now, back to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and now this is at this point we try to introduce some endorsed candidates who have come to our meeting. We do have Paul Wikstrom, who's a candidate for Congress and CD4. Paul, you want to come on up? Paul believes it's time for new leadership in CD4. I think Betty McCollum has been there more than 20 years.
Thank you, Terry. Can you hear me okay in the back? Perfect. Let me know, just raise your hand back there if you're not hearing me for some reason. This looks like a much friendlier audience than the state convention where I stood up in front of 2,000 people about a week ago. Dark with lots of noise behind, and I can see everybody here, and it's a lot more fun. Basically, this past weekend, I was at a festival and met a 10-year-old entrepreneur named Casey. She was selling love treats, cat and dog treats, and she wants to purchase a horse. She probably is a lot like you in attendance today. Independent thinkers working hard to reach personal goals and love the freedom that we have to reach those dreams to make our nation great. It's meeting young people like that that keeps me grounded and moving forward. And you can see my social media account, Wikstrom for Congress, Facebook and Twitter and such, to catch that video. It's actually quite cute video, about 45 seconds long. I am Paul Wikstrom, the endorsed Republican from CD4. I won the endorsement, 77% of the ballot, paper ballot, first round endorsement. No clickers. So, according to Alpha News, who interviewed me in January, Liz Collin called me the man who changed the face of politics in Minnesota, and I'll explain. In 2024, I challenged a DFL fraudulent candidate in my district when I ran for House. The result of that gave us a Republican Speaker in the House, a fraud committee for the first time ever, and strengthening the rules that gave the Republicans some real power in the tied House. Thank you. This essentially stopped the runaway DFL trifecta spending. If you recall the previous session, the budget went up in 23 to 24 by 40%, $20 billion. So essentially, one notable Republican recently said, Wikstrom has probably saved billions of dollars in reduced spending. In CD4, we have a congresswoman who's been serving us for a quarter century. I don't know about you, but in that amount of time, I expect her to deliver results. You'd expect somebody fighting for Minnesota. So what did we get with Betty McCollum? We got a rubber stamp for Obama and a rubber stamp for Biden. We got the so-called Affordable Care Act that made health care unaffordable. And we got the Green New Deal that drove up our energy bills. We got runaway inflation that's crushed working families. And during her tenure, we got $30 billion of new debt. It was about $8 trillion when she went into office 25 years ago, and it's now about $39 trillion of debt. Debt that our kids and grandkids will be paying off for the rest of their lives. And that's her record. She is bought and paid for by special interests and corporate PACs, out of touch with everyday residents of Minnesota. And here's the good news, we don't have to take it. McCollum can be beaten. Voters are fed up. They're fed up with the fraud. $9 billion stolen right here in Minnesota, and some estimates go up as high as $19 billion. Right under her nose in her district, my district, our district in CD4. And I strongly suspect she knew exactly what was happening. How could she not know? Now it's we, the taxpayers, who are stuck paying to clean up the mess that she ignored. I am committed to fighting for you in Washington. And going to Washington, I have a 7-point plan for fraud. I'm not going to read through all of them, but a couple of the ones that I think are really notable are: one, extend the clock on statute of limitations. And we want to make sure that people who are accused of fraud can be tried under a longer statute of limitations. Number 2, verify before payment instead of this verification afterwards. And number 7, let's hold states accountable. I will fight to protect your benefits. Excuse me. I will fight to stop taxing seniors, and I will fight to lower health care costs. So it's time for change. I would be deeply honored to earn your vote and to be your voice in Washington. I need your support. I need your donations. And will you invest in me? I have changed the direction of Minnesota politics, and I can do it in Washington, D.C. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you. And I've got envelopes and business cards and such back there. If people would like to contribute, if you're feeling the love, really need your help within the campaign. And I can open it up. I think there's time for a few questions, Terry?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Okay. This is actually my favorite part, is to take questions, unless they're really hard questions.
Thank you for all the work you do, and it's really great. So my name is Ed Punk from Lakeville. I'm not very adept in knowledge to know which districts there are, CD districts. Mm-hmm. Where is your area of CD4? Where does that cover?
So if you know where the city of Mounds View is, right next to Blaine, that's the northwest corner, and go all the way up to Stillwater, follow the river down, and around Cottage Grove, come back to the west into St. Paul. So basically it's the St. Paul East metro area. Good question, thank you. Question up front? I can repeat the question too if needed.
I think it's important to emphasize the fact that we don't oppose some of these programs. The people are stealing from other people that deserve it.
Right.
To help.
There's multiple aspects of the fraud. The one is the visible effect, right? We're driving on streets with potholes. You can see the decay in some areas, things we're used to having, that the quality's dropped. But the other effect is denial of services to people that really need it. 1 year, $9 billion of fraud could pay for health care for 600,000 seniors for a year. And with meals for homeless, one meal at $4.50, you could pay for 2 billion meals and $9 billion of fraud. So it's not just the theft, but it's the denial of services, these essential services that are impacted too. So I completely agree, and you're right, we got to emphasize that. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Some good ones. Let me know if you have any, sign up for the newsletter on my website, and you can always go there to contribute Wikstrom for Congress. And, you can follow our progress with our newsletter that comes out weekly now. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here to listen to my presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Paul. Good luck. And I received a call from Adam Schwarze's campaign. Is Adam here? Okay, he's not here then. Okay, good. We'll move on. Tom Spitznagel. Tom? Yeah. Okay, Tom's going to try to explain to you our financial situation and maybe pick your brains for just a moment on maybe some ideas you might have. Tom?
Well, good morning. My name is Tom Spitznagel, and I've been on the board for about 8 years off and on. Just wanted to give you a little update on Republican seniors, maintaining our financial integrity. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone who has paid member dues, meeting dues, or who has donated to Republican seniors over the past 15 plus years. Your contributions have enabled RSM volunteers to build upon the legacies of Presidents Bob McGinnis and his lovely wife Barb, who is no longer with us, Mike Lehman over here on the council, Carol Brumwell on the back table, and our current president, Terry Flower. Today, 7 unpaid volunteer board members and another dozen or so unpaid member volunteers and consultants devote a significant amount of their personal time and even some of their own money in order to bring all of us the valuable monthly Republican Seniors meetings. Don Patton, RSM's Republican Seniors Guest Speaker Coordinator, along with our Republican Seniors self-paid delegates to GOP conventions, are especially notable for their personal commitments of time and money. One of Republican Seniors' key goals is to educate seniors statewide about the important issues of the day. Education by unbiased subject matter experts is critical to maintaining a strong Republican Party and helping Republicans to get elected who can save Minnesota from the mess it finds itself in. We are very pleased that RSM's live stream and videos are helping us do just that, and are thankful for the dedication of Brad Nolte and Patty Pietz of Livestream Pros. Now in this room, you can see the video cameras. What you can't see and what most of you probably don't realize is there is a van outside the building, just like a TV news van, full of electronic equipment, which Brad and Patty are voluntarily operating for us. So we're thankful for their dedication. We are also thankful to the Bloomington Event Center for supporting the Republican seniors with their venue and services at a reasonable cost. Republican Seniors provides 11 in-person meetings and all of its member services on a shoestring budget of only about $14,000 per year. Looking to the future, Republican Seniors Treasurer Greg Schwarze, who unfortunately was unable to be here today, he's hospitalized, and we're wishing him well. But Greg forecasts that we will need more money than the $12,000 we took in last fiscal year. So we've got about a $2,000 gap already, but we have money in our checking account, so we're not in any kind of problem. But we're looking ahead, and we realize that Republican seniors cannot rely solely on member dues, especially as our reach continually expands to include, we call them courtesy participants statewide, watching our live stream and videos, people who are otherwise unable to attend. But it's critical to our mission of educating seniors statewide. If we didn't do the live stream and video, which is costly, the only people that would hear our speakers would be the people that are present in the convention center or convention room here now. So anyway, we're getting down to, here's how you may be able to help. Republican seniors would appreciate it if a small group of volunteers would be willing to work on developing new fundraising ideas. We are open to any new ideas. So Pam, my lovely wife Pam, is going to distribute some sign-up sheets. If you have an interest in becoming part of a small group of like 2 to 4 members to try and develop some ideas for raising funds for us in the future, we'd appreciate it. If you are out there watching live stream, you can contact me at republicanseniors@gmail.com. That's republicanseniors@gmail.com. Ideally, we can put together a group of 2 to 4 people who can get the ball rolling. It's not a crisis situation, but we're looking ahead. Our treasurer is saying, well, we need to amp things up a little bit here. So if we get something going now, we'll be in good shape. Finally, membership dues and donations are always welcome. Credit card payments can be made at the donate webpage of the RSM website. That's something that we introduced here a few months ago. You can pay your dues via credit card, or if you want to make a small donation or any kind of donation, we'd appreciate that. Any questions from anybody about? Yes, there's one over there.
I'm pretty technologically challenged, but is there anyone monitoring how many people might be watching on your video?
Yes, our live stream people in the truck outside know exactly how many are watching.
Well, I'm going to reach out to them and ask them for $5 right now.
Fair enough.
Awesome, thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Sir?
Hi, it's not a question, it's a statement. But if when I go and give my $5, if they just said, would you be willing to give a little more than the 5, that's cost of admission, but would you be able to give a little more? I mean, I'd probably always give a 10 or a 20 just to help if we're trying to make ends meet. So
well, that would
asking for a little more when we come, you'd probably get more.
That would be very much appreciated. That's probably an idea for the fundraising working group to kind of develop a little bit further. Any other? Al? How reasonable it is. Oh, yeah, Al Muroff was just commenting that he said how reasonable it is to be here. You want to go ahead?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we had a meeting last month, and I think we have a pretty good place here to meet. And a lot of these bar and restaurants, they want $1,000 to $2,000 just to have a meeting at the restaurant and serve some basic food. But we have a pretty good deal here. So I just wanted you to know that we're being very judicious on how we do our expenses.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, for what we get done here, I mean, $14,000 a year is pretty minimal amount of money. Especially, it would probably be 3 or 4 times that if we had to pay Margaret for our live stream and pay the people that are spending their own money to do things on our behalf. So, any other last question? Okay. Well, thank you for listening, and please, if you have any inkling at all about how to raise money, sign up.
Thank you, Tom. Tom has gone out of his way to kind of be the guru of fundraising and keeping us fiscally sound. We've got a couple other candidates here. Jude. Okay, Tad is running for Secretary of State. And I remember when he and I were in the same Senate district and he was running for Congress.
Thank you, Terry, and I'll just take a minute. First of all, thank you for the endorsement. How many made it to the convention? All right. You can see I was there too. You said Steve Simon. In any case, it was an exciting convention. A lot of good debate, a lot of controversy, of course. And what we've got coming up is we're in the middle of a campaign. And what you had coming out of the convention are a couple primaries. Primary season, or election season, believe it or not, starts June 26th. So 2.5 weeks from now, people will be voting. And if you know primaries in Minnesota, they're decided by a few votes. So every vote is going to be critical starting June 26th. I'd encourage you to get people out. One of the issues that came up at the convention had to do with the back of the ballot. You know, when it comes to voting for judges, you never get enough information. That's one of the things I hope to change as Secretary of State. I've got solid ideas on how to bring some accountability into our judicial system. We've got 7 members of the Minnesota Supreme Court. They're all appointed by Governor Walz or Governor Dayton. And they say, well, we've got the most diverse court you can believe in the country. What they don't have is diversity of opinion or viewpoint. They're all liberal. And that's not fair to the litigants, it's not fair to the taxpayer, it's not fair to the voter. When you go and vote, on the back of the ballot, it's a blind vote or a throwaway vote often. We're going to change that. But we're also going to make sure when you vote in Minnesota, you're 18 years old. You're a legal U.S. citizen. You live in Minnesota, and you're alive. Okay. I'm going to work with the DOJ to make sure we clean up the voting rolls. We're also going to have a vote on the Minnesota flag. That's something Steve Simon has been hiding from. We're going to bring about on the flag. Anyway, thank you for letting us be here, and get people out to vote starting June 26th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're really, if you want to see things turn around, elect somebody like Ted Jude who's going to get our election straightened out. That will be important. Also, I noticed that we have Mark Koran, a state senator. He's here, and maybe he'd like to just say hello to you. Mark?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. State Senator Mark Koran, represents Senate District 28, Chisago and Isanti counties. But born and raised, I'm a Frogtowner out of St. Paul, born just a couple blocks from the Capitol. And just wanted to let you guys know the election piece of it, right? Everybody knows somebody. This is just like 2024. Everybody knows somebody who doesn't believe their vote matters. Every single vote matters, and you're the most influential person in your sphere and in your network. You need to drag them across the finish line, but I think Ted mentioned it. Our standards are higher than the Democrats because we require a pulse. So make sure when you drag them, you have a pulse. But I wanted to leave it one piece of information that you see every day, and the information that you're fed is pretty limited, right? And it's what's withheld in any story is always the context of all the information they provide. Can anyone in here tell me what Minnesota's 2-year spending is? Anybody have an idea? Somebody shout out a number.
66 billion.
66 billion. That's a good guess. So the general fund budget, your general fund budget, there's a trick in there. General fund is what? Anybody know what general fund is? Nobody does, because it's defined, it's fed to you as that's our spending. That's true. It is a portion of our spending. It's the only portion of the spending that the legislature allocates. And so when I do this, because every story you read, I know you're all skeptical anyways, but every single day, think about what our spending here is in Minnesota and how it impacts you. And so our general fund budget is about $70 billion, but we spend $65 billion every year. Well, how the heck do we do that? Anybody know? Because that general fund typically represents less than half of all of our spending. So in Minnesota, you have $85 billion of taxes applied and collected by the state of Minnesota. Another $45 billion, or 68 cents of every dollar we send to the federal government, comes back, totaling $45 billion. And that in total is about $130 billion for our 2-year spending. And so if you think you're mad about the spending, you're mad and you only know about half of it. And of those funding, a lot of it's federal dollars, our roads and schools and those types of things. But what comes along with that federal spending is a bunch of terrible terms and conditions, or blackmail, whichever one you prefer. And the greatest challenge is that that's the bane of our existence. As a state legislator, all that terrible, crappy federal legislation is foundational to us being able to solve for our own problems. We don't know if we should accept those dollars back in many cases. In Department of Education, we got $3 billion. We don't really know what the cost of accepting that $3 billion is. We certainly see poor outcomes, but we don't have control of those things by accepting those dollars. So we need Congress to make sure to close some loopholes on all of the things that we've seen, get better laws, solve some of those root cause problems, because we have enough bureaucracy to solve everything we have. So thank you, everybody. We got a 3-minute limit. And again, Mark Koran. I am running, but for Minnesota Senate, this is my 10th year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good. Okay, and Adam Schwarze did not show. I must have gotten stopped. At this point, I usually tell a political joke, but the thing is, I was just totally outclassed this weekend because the DFL party endorsed a whole lot of jokes that I'll never be able to compete with. Yeah. Well, I could really start telling them, couldn't I? Let's see. Well, also on our agenda, we do have a report. Remember, you all elected a delegate to represent you at the state convention and at the congressional districts as well. And Jay, Kakuk, and Kathy Kranz attended to represent you, and Jay's going to talk.
Thank you, Terry. This is the shop floor. About 2,000 people spread out there. Oh, good. Yeah, clicker. And you can sort of see the balcony. That's if you're not a delegate, you're banished to the balcony. You only get on the floor if you have a voting card, if you are a delegate. So, same thing on the floor. The senior Republicans, or the affiliates, I should say, are always in the back row. I've been to 3 of these now. The affiliates are always like almost the nosebleed section of the back floor. Floor scene, you can see all those signs. A lot of big, nice screens, but you cannot see the screens because you got all these signs up there. Okay, so I chose to help with registration both days. It ran really smooth. You know, if anybody went to Rochester, that was about a 5-hour ordeal to get registered. It was a disaster. St. Paul was good, and this one was good too. It was great. Saturday, gavel in at 10 o'clock. First productive action was a standing vote for Ron at 1:36. So what might you ask happened in 3 hours and 26 minutes? This is where things get frustrating at these large events. There's always somebody going to argue about insane details. Some of this made a little bit of sense because some race people wanted him to be the second day because theoretically more people show up on Friday or Saturday instead of the Friday. I don't know if there was more than 50 vote difference between the 2 days, but there's a whole bunch of people. I want this, item 14 should be moved here and item 9 should be moved there and yada, yada, yada. Why? What's the point here? And, of course, arguing over the paper ballots. That's always fun. It's been on every one of these conventions so far. Paper ballots would take a long time. Because we've had 10 rounds on the governor. We would be there we'd still be there if we had paper ballots. Adopt the rules, et cetera, et cetera. The comma brigade is what I call all these people. The comma brigade. I move, if you're in front of 3,000 people here, I move that we pick the comma from here and you put it over there. And you just move on. I'm a kind of guy that likes to get her done, and I'm sitting there just bouncing in my chair. Oh, yeah, and there's always some snafu. Somebody handed out the voting cards, just, here, take a voting card, everybody gets a voting card. Well, that's a disaster. That's not allowed. I mean, these are held under lock and key. It's tight control. And so they had to collect them all and then reissue the voting cards. That took about an hour and a half. Finally, we started handing out voting clickers at 1:30 p.m. And then 3 o'clock is the first voting practice. I don't know why it takes an hour and a half to vote, just to hand out clickers, but it took a long time. This is what they look like. practice question was, how many first-timers? And the answer was 728. So a full third of the delegates were first-timers. That's kind of encouraging. Although after the event, you kind of wonder how many will be coming back. I'm kind of a glutton for punishment. I like to see the sausage made, so I kind of knew what this was going to be. Well, hang on. Well, okay, yeah, right. So this is still Friday. Finally, 5 o'clock. So we've been there for 7 hours now since gavel end. We start voting for Senate. 2 hours since we've had the clickers. About an hour of that is speaker time. So that's real value added. All the candidates give an opportunity, give their speech. And so that part was good. And then there was the Comma Brigade came right back in full force of crazy stuff. Yeah, and so they have three, this is a typo, 3 microphones. So if you've never been to one of these things, there's a microphone over there and one here and one here. So 3 microphones. And anybody at any time out of the 2,000 people on the floor can come up to the microphone. And they just want to hear their voice on the speaker. I don't know what they're talking about. Just crazy stuff. Takes forever. Okay, 7:50. Round 6, Adam Schwarze wins. Lots of drama, back and forth, between, the Royce speaking and Adam and, the various candidates that got whittled down pretty quick between Royce and Adam.
No, it's Tafoya.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right, sorry. So this is the first voting so this was all at once. Alicia, Adam, Michelle Tafoya, Tom Weiler, Royce White, Mark York. And so you can see number 2, Adam, was the leader right away. Michelle was 3rd. Royce was the 4th, in line. And then so the lowest ones, there's the thresholds for people getting booted off. So it was between the 3 of them there, 3 and 4 of them there for a little while. So then, by that time you're kind of tired. I've been there since 7 in the morning. We're at 8 o'clock at night, and you got 2,000 people. They're all itchy, wanting to get food, wanting to get dinner, and go to bed. And then we start with state auditor, 8 to 9:30 that took. And Nate George wins that. 9:30 to 10, Secretary of State Tad Jude won in 2 rounds. Did I skip one? No. So Saturday, 9 a.m. gavel. 10:45, the governor presentation starts. So yeah, there's another hour and 45 minutes of just static, you might say. Round 1 results. So number 5, Lisa came out on top right away. 6, then it was Kendall Qualls. And 4, then Mike Lindell, and then Patrick Knight. So it's pretty nice to see these results up there. And it took all day long. 10 rounds of back and forth and back and forth. There gets to be, it's kind of interesting. If you stand back and you can feel the energy of the crowd. There's a medieval term for this. It's called egregore. It's like the spirit of the collective conscious mind that just drifts this way and then, no, drifts back this way. It's kind of, that's why people go, I think, because you can feel this energy. And then there's also a lot of energy between the candidates up there, your mother wears army boots. No, you're this or you're that. There's a lot of bantering, a lot of physical and mental drama. Holy smokes! I better hurry up here. It's kind of like a Ouija board. This egregore spirit. Round 5 got to be Kendall and Lisa, and so here comes the drama, the big drama part, where at rounds 5 and 6, the vote totals from near 2,000 down to 1,500. So this is where we start wondering about the clickers and why did we drop 500 points? And so this sent us into a tailspin for long time, hours really. So reboot the system and do more practice votes and do this and do that. And so then the important people go back in the back room and hash things out, throw punches or whatever it was they do back there. And then all hell breaks loose with the paper ballot crowd. I mean, so now they kind of got a valid reason. Hey, these clickers are goofing up. Let's go to paper. So that was back and forth quite a while. Motions on top of motions. You need an Excel spreadsheet to track these motions. Danny Nadeau, if you know Danny, he's amazing at being the parliamentarian up there, the leader of this process, trying to corral 2,000 minds into a direction. Okay, about 6 p.m., on with the clicking, repeat round 6. Some accusations of, maybe one team pushed a bunch of buttons wrong just to mess it up on purpose. Tempers flare, strange alliances. Nathan Wiesenberg got up to support Lisa, which he had been bashing Lisa weeks before that. So just things happen that you don't understand. Okay, so finally 9 o'clock. So we're in there all day long. 9 o'clock, Kendall wins 61% of the votes, or very close to that. Rules. Then we get into rules and platform votes as the masses bum rush the exit. I mean, at this point, people are so tired and so frustrated. They just crash the doors. And, we're trying to get the little, some of the business done. And the comma brigade is still there. They just won't stop. Another bunch of silliness. Adam Schwarze gets the prize for the coolest booth. Big truck there. That was fun to see, fun to look at. And on the garbage, you get flooded with stuff. I see one of the books here, the Mike Lindell books. Everybody got a book. Everybody gets a ton of stuff. You cannot hardly read it all. Youngest delegate. Full bar opens at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yahoo! Let's have some fun. So, day 1, 15 hours. Day 2, 14 hours. Noise, chaos, excitement, drama, fatigue. The great clicker keeper. But we got the job done. What was accomplished? Well, I think it maybe was valuable, but then a whole bunch of people now are going in the primary. Politics is a blood sport. It's messy business. I don't know what to say about all that. It's just what it is. I mean, it's our world, and so get used to messy, I think, is the main point. And to top that all off, I lost my tailpipe on the way home. That's a wrap. I see Adam's back here now if you want to have him.
Yep. Adam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. One thing about the endorsed candidates, we're going to go through them in just a minute, but it was because they worked hard, they got that fire in their belly, they're going to serve us, and that's what's important. Adam?
Thank you, sir. Well, it's good to be back as your endorsed United States Senate candidate. Thank you so much for your love and support. I probably won't get to speak with you before 4th of July, so I'd like to share a couple of sentiments, if that's okay. Tell me if this sounds familiar right now. An army of foreigners stationed in our cities, living off the people. Check. A distant political class taxing us to extinction to serve themselves, not us. Check. Massacres in the streets while they try to take away guns from law-abiding citizens. Check. Like the intolerable acts that sparked the American Revolution of 1776, the Walls and Flanagan oppression has ignited the Minnesota Revolution of 2026. Let's go. Like us, our forefathers had enough. But the battles didn't go well at first. We lost at Long Island, at Kips Bay, at Fort Washington, at Fort Lee. Morale cratered. But then one man, George Washington, put it all on the line. He crossed the Delaware River at night on Christmas Eve in an ice storm and changed American history forever. And how did he do it? Did George Washington succeed by compromising on his gun rights? Did George Washington succeed by negotiating with the politicians who were putting foreigners over Americans? No. He did it by fighting and leading from the front lines. And so, it is our time, Minnesotans. We face an existential fight, a no-fail mission, against radical extremists who are sacrificing your liberties at the altar of wokeness, against an invading horde who has defrauded you of billions and weak leaders who let them, and against a D.C. establishment elite class, including weak leaders in the United States Senate, Republicans who won't even work to pass the Save America Act to secure our elections. A law 87% of Americans support. In our time, we have seen what weak leaders can do to a strong country. But we've also seen what a warrior can do. I've lived the difference. I've served under weak leaders, Biden, Obama. But I've also served under great leaders, like my 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief and our great President Donald J. Trump. Under his leadership, America is back on top. No tax on tips. No tax on Social Security. No tax on overtime. Federal agents who enforce our laws. A fortified border. The largest drop in drug prices in American history. And a military that's strong and proud to serve once again. This is a man who has taken bullets for us. Bullets. And yet, President Trump can't do it alone any more than George Washington could. We don't need more champagne Republicans in D.C. who blush every time the president tweets. We need fighters watching his six, getting his back, charging the Hill to support his agenda. And ladies and gentlemen, that is why I stand before you this morning seeking your vote for the United States Senate. If you want a smooth-talking politician, there are other options. And I'm going to be blunt, friends. If you're happy with the D.C. status quo right now, there's a D.C. establishment candidate, there's other options. But if you want a fighter who specializes in no-fail missions, who doesn't know how to quit, who doesn't lead by reading the polls, but abides in his faith in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and who will fight like hell when the mission requires it, I ask for your vote. I know who I am. I'm only on this planet for speaking with you this morning because my mom chose life and adoption and sacrifice and endured so I could have a shot. I grew up in a 1-bathroom, 2-bedroom house in Bloomington, right here. I hunt, I fish, I'm a distinguished lifelong member of the NRA, and I too have been a fighter for you on the front lines. But none of that will define my time in the U.S. Senate. My time isn't even defined by me, actually. It's defined by you. We know what we're up against this cycle. We've lost battle after battle after battle in these elections, just like our forefathers did in the colonial days. We haven't won a statewide in 20 years. I get it. But this is the cycle we cross the Delaware. This is when we turn the tide. Minnesotans, regardless of party, are sick and tired of the Walzes, the Flanagans, the social extremists, and the national embarrassment they've caused. But we will win because we are on the side of God, because we fight faith first. And when we go to D.C., we are going to fight. We're going to fight these criminals who stole from you. We're going to fight the fraudsters and the corrupt politicians who bought elections with your stolen tax dollars. We will fight these communists in our communities. We will fight to take back our churches, our communities. We will fight to restore the hope of our great state, and together we will reclaim the liberty for you, your family, in the United States of America and our nation's future. God bless you, Republican seniors. God bless the troops downrange right now, and God bless the United States of America. It's an honor to be back home. God bless you guys. Have a great day.
And that's the guy who's going to win the next Senate seat. You know, I just heard that the perfect place for liberals is jail. I mean, hey, it's got free housing, it's got free food, it's got free medical, there's no guns, and they can have gay sex there too. What we're going on to now, we talked, you heard Jay and everybody talking about endorsed candidates. And that means that they are the pick of the party and they have the support of everybody in the party. And we, as an affiliate of the Republican Party in the state of Minnesota, we support the endorsed candidates. This may change after the primary, but at least through the primary, we support the endorsed candidates. So we have the list here, and just about all of these, I did not see Brad Finstead, but I saw all the other congressional district candidates, and you know that Eric Pratt was here how many times? Quentin Whitrock was here, Paul Wikstrom was here, Dahlia was here. I mean, they're out here working for you. At this point, our Senate candidate is Adam Schwarze. Our Attorney General is Ron Schutz. For Governor, Kendall Qualls. And I think you all have had two straw polls, and you picked Kendall Qualls. And Jay was bound to vote for Kendall on the first vote. And Tad Jude was here how many times? I mean, these people are working, and for State Auditor Nate George. So we have a slew of candidates. They're out there working to make sure that Minnesota moves ahead. Okay, at this point, Carol.
Well, Jay graciously allows me to mention something special that happened at the state convention, and that is our chair, Terry Flower, and his wife, Margaret, were awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the MN GOP. You may not realize what an example of American exceptionalism our chair is. He was an Air Force pilot. He graduated from the Air Force Academy, then went on after service to get a PhD in physics and astronomy. He spent 34 years as a professor of physics and astronomy at St. Kate's. But in the background, starting in 1980, he was extremely active in Republican politics. What is now SD41 had a different number at the time. He served as the chair and co-chair and all the other executive roles within that Senate district. He's served as a precinct chair. He is still a precinct chair. He tells me that down in his Senate district, they have to have the voter Democrat for a day in the polls because they don't have enough poll judges who are Democrats. They have gotten that strong in their Republican judges down there. He has served as a state convention delegate. He served as a state central delegate. He is active in the community. He is president of the Sons of Norway, which is not a Republican organization, but they should be. He and his wife have done fundraising for candidates A to Z, including Rudy Boschwitz, many others. He was instrumental and also served as president of an old organization that no longer exists, the Twin Cities Republican Association. Organization was very active for 15 years. He and his wife are currently very active in supporting the Metro Republican Women and their Speaking Proudly event, which happens every 2 years. So they graciously open their home and hold fundraisers for that event. So I am happy to let you know a little bit more about our chair, Terry Flower, and their award. You can see a picture of that. And Donna Bergstrom presented that award to them.
Okay. Yeah. Folks, like Jay said, there were 2,200 and some odd delegates at that convention. There are all kinds of people that are serving the Republican Party. They didn't go drive up to Duluth just to drive for a vacation. They went there to work and try to make Minnesota move ahead. Listen, in helping today, you got a printed survey when you checked in and paid your $5 and got your name tag. You got a survey. If you would do your due diligence and fill that out, it could make a difference. I think between everybody I see sitting here, somebody must have a good idea on what would be the right thing to do. And then your board will act on that and see what we can do, because we certainly want to keep things going. By the way, I should mention to you, Mike Lehman is at the board here controlling the electronics, and he advises me that we have 25 devices logged in. And that number varies. I know 2 months ago, when Rudy Boschwitz was here, we had 126 devices logged in. That's devices logged in. That's not people. Each of those devices could have 10 people or however many watching it. So the word is getting out, and that's what we're about, is to help educate people who want to know more so they can make wise decisions, especially at the ballot place. Folks, we are going to take a 3-minute stretch here, and then we'll go with our featured speaker. So.
You're watching Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We'll be right back.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota appreciates your financial support as we continue to bring guest speakers of official capacity and prominence. Help us grow the conservative movement in our state and country. Scan the QR code to make a donation today.
In my America.
In my America.
In my America.
In my America, I am free.
In my America, I get to choose my leaders.
In my America, we the people is a colorless phrase.
In my America, I am free.
Oh, say, can you see?
In my America, any one of my daughters can be a soldier, a doctor, and a mother.
In my America, freedom of speech doesn't exclude Christianity, it's rooted in it.
In my America, family comes first.
In my America, I can own my own business.
In my America, we honor our troops and their sacrifices.
In my America, one nation is followed by under God.
In my America,
in my America, fireworks remind me of the gift of freedom.
In my America, I am free.
In my America, I can worship freely.
In my America, the founding fathers used the Bible to guide their pen.
在我美国，我有自由。
In my America, you can snowboard wherever you want to, even at the mall.
In my America, Charlton Heston is a hero.
In my America, I can raise my children in the nurture and admonition of my faith.
In my America, freedom takes action.
Home of the brave.
We are a nation that has overcome. We are no strangers to adversity. We've always found the strength when we've needed it most. To protect, to defend, to sustain, to heal, to teach, to unite. It's because we've been through challenging times and always come through more capable than before. As individuals and as a nation, we are strong, over 300 million strong, and together we're at our best. Join us for America's semi-quincentennial. That's right, 250 years in 2026. Visit America250.org.
Okay, a few more of you got some seats to take. Folks, this morning we have a unique talk, and it sounds like doesn't have a whole lot to do with politics. But the fact of the matter is, if you've gone on a cruise or you've just gone on a vacation overseas somewhere, you may have stopped in a grocery store. And in that grocery store, you saw shelves that are probably half empty. You know, you probably saw grocery stores with enormous prices. And we have today with us Steve Barthel. He's the Director of Governmental Relations for the Minnesota Grocers Association. He's going to talk about the politics of food. He's going to excuse me, try to help us understand just what public policy does to affect the prices and affect the availability of different kinds of foods on those grocery shelves. And believe me, that makes one big difference. Steve, you want to come on up? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you to Don for sending the invite to get us here today. always love talking about this to people who are interested in it. It's my day job. It's what I do, working for the Minnesota Grocers Association and working at the legislature. But not often that I get to talk about it in front of a group. So this is a brand new slide deck that I put together just for this. So please ignore any spelling errors or mistakes. And I don't know exactly how long this will take, but we'll get through it, and I'll be sure to leave some questions or time for questions at the end if you have any. So as I said, I'm Steve Barthel. I'm Director of Government Relations with the Minnesota Grocers Association. I've been with the MGA since 2022. Prior to that, I did work at the legislature as a staffer for the Minnesota House Republican Caucus when Cindy Pugh, who's in the back, when she was a representative there. We were there at the same time. You may have also heard of my boss, Pat Garofalo. Those of you who are either on social media or listen to Garage Logic, he's on there quite often. He was a legislator for almost 20 years before he retired here in 2024 to take over as president of the MGA. So we are the two at the association that do the active lobbying work for our members. So today, we're just going to tell you a little bit about the MGA, who we are, how we advocate for not only our members, who are the ones who are getting the food from the field to the stores and to consumers, but also how it impacts you as those who are purchasing groceries. Right, and the politics of food is very active, especially since the pandemic, as we've seen cost of groceries increase. There are plenty of reasons why that is happening, and a lot of that has to do with politics. So being involved from an association standpoint is very important. We'll talk about those policies, some specifically, some on a more general level, and I think folks in this group understand the concepts of cost on the input side of an industry that sells items and how that comes out on the other end. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also was asked to touch maybe on price gouging, and then I wanted to talk about some of these municipal grocery items that you've been hearing, both in Minneapolis and in New York is the loud one, but it has been tried elsewhere in the not too distant past, and I have a couple of case studies on those and talk about why free markets and allowing retailers and food companies the ability to work in an efficient and a cost-effective manner is important, and why having the government take over some of those roles and those situations doesn't always work out. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. So who are the MGA? What is the MGA? We are one of the oldest trade organizations in the state. We were founded almost 130 years ago. So we say almost or maybe the oldest because there aren't a lot of records, but we do have records showing that we went back almost 130 years now. We actively advance the interests of those engaged in the food industry. Our membership, we say, goes from farm to fork. We have ag producers, we have transportation companies, we have food packagers, food handlers, refrigeration companies, anybody who's has anything to do with getting the food from the fields to the store and then operating in a retail setting are eligible to be members of ours. So we have a wide breadth of topics that we are interested in. We are a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. I will say generally, right, we have strong leanings when it comes to labor regulations and taxes and those types of things, but we are a nonpartisan organization. We do look for ways that we can work with Republicans and Democrats alike, which is especially important here in Minnesota, and with what the legislature has looked like this year and the last couple of sessions as well. We have over 300 member companies, like I said, manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers. We also have convenience store members as well. That gets our total up to about 1,300 locations across the entire state. Our member companies employ over 150,000 workers, union and non-union. A lot of the chain stores, the independent retailers here in the cities that you've heard of are generally union stores and have been for many decades. I always kind of say when people ask, well, who are your members? I say, well, if it's a family name on the building here in the cities, it's most likely one of our members. You think your Lunds and Byerlys and Kowalski's, Cub is a member of ours as well. And then when you get outstate, the mom and pops, we have single store operators across the state as well. Interesting fact and points to the importance of the ag economy and the food economy in Minnesota, that 1 in every 20 jobs in Minnesota is somehow supported by the food industry in this state. We are given direction from a board of directors at the MGA, and they put all of our work into 4 different buckets, 4 different categories. To govern for the civic advancement of the food industry, to foster a fair marketplace, to be the relevant voice of industry, and to support an active and fully engaged membership. So we are at the Capitol in St. Paul, working with legislators, having conversations, testifying in committee. We're also informing our members when new laws pass and go into effect. And then they are very generous and sometimes loud in returning to us the way that these new regulations are going to impact their businesses and the cost that it's going to have on their operation, and then ultimately on the sticker prices in their stores. Just a few facts that I find interesting, and we update these annually as the new numbers come out. But just to get your mind maybe wrapped around a little bit about the food industry, this is specifically geared towards the retail setting, but just some of the facts and figures that I think are interesting. Typically your store has nearly 32,000 individual items and barcodes, which is a huge number to manage and to keep up for your pricing teams and your advertising and all of those types of things. Larger grocery store tends to be over 40,000 square feet. That's a ton of energy, lighting, refrigeration, air conditioning, all of those types of things. Also, big square footage when we're talking about property taxes and how those impact a grocery store operation. Average shopping trip takes around 41 minutes. I think the average number of trips per week is 2.5. I didn't include that on here. Weekly household grocery expense, $169 as of February of this year. I can tell you as a father of 3 young children that mine is much higher than that. Sales per transaction, about $45. And that's for an in-store transaction. Online transactions are actually higher, but many fewer transactions actually do take place online. We're only looking at about 7%. And the percent of transaction used with self-checkout is now up to 35%. Very divisive topic when I talk to people. It seems that customers either love the self-checkout line or they hate it. So stores have to have both options. We hear a lot from our members too when they, especially when it comes to seniors and when they are out in the store. Sometimes that is the most public interaction that they will have, certainly in their day, but sometimes in their week. Seniors tend to love going through a checkout with a live person there. They love having a conversation. They love having someone help them. But certainly the younger generations tend to like I don't want to talk to anybody. I can do this myself and get out of here. So very interesting how customer preferences can be very wide and broad, and they change. This has actually come up over time. These numbers used to be in the teens and 20s for those who preferred the self-checkout. And speaking of property taxes, and this is an old number, and this is nationwide, median annual property tax bill per store is approaching $200,000. And I would be willing to bet with the property tax challenges that you are all facing and that we have seen here in the state of Minnesota, that number has increased. I would be willing to bet it's probably crossed that $200,000 threshold here in this state. And so ultimately the question as to why do the grocers care about politics and talking about those costs and the different areas that impact our industry, it all comes down to this tiny profit margin number. In 2024, the profit margin for independent retail grocers, so this doesn't include your Walmarts, your Targets, the Costco's, the big ones who sell all sorts of other general merchandise, but your independent retail grocers was less than 2%, 1.7%, and that's been pretty consistent for many decades now. So that is a huge challenge, and the main industry or main reason why we are engaged in St. Paul, because any costs that come from those policies, from new labor mandates, from increasing the cost of energy, ultimately come out on the other end of the equation with those being passed on to consumers. And we always tell the story of how your small mom and pops are even more impacted by changes and increased costs from state or federal regulation. We're going to say, so the paid family leave program that has now taken effect here in the state of Minnesota, that impacts Bob's Market, out in outstate Minnesota, much more than it does a Walmart, right? Walmart has 2,700 stores that they can spread that cost out. If you are a single store operator, all of those costs are going to be borne by you, passed on to your consumers, already increasing that imbalance between the prices of a Walmart versus the prices of an independent retailer, and put just that extra strain on your business, which leads us to that next number. And this was pre-pandemic, so I imagine we've lost many, many more since then, but your rural non-metro counties have lost 4 in 10 of their small independent grocers. Food deserts, whether it's urban or rural, but especially rural, are expanding. The distance that folks have to travel to do their grocery shopping, right? It's not uncommon to have to drive 20 or 30 miles to the next big town to go to the Walmart that they have there. So this continues to be a big issue and one of the main reasons why we are in St. Paul, to educate legislators on proposed policies, why it's a bad idea or why it's a good idea. There's been a lot more bad ideas than good ideas lately, though. So with that loss of the small independent rural grocers comes the increase of the big guys, right? They have the ability to move into a community and kind of, take that buying power of, within a 30, 40 mile radius to be able to draw everybody in, which leads to those closures as well. And one of the big things that we talk about at the Capitol as well is the continued consolidation that we see within the food industry. It's not unique to the food industry. We see it in health and in tech and in entertainment, right? There's a lot of consolidation going to the big guys. We are seeing that in the food industry as well, as these higher operating costs continue to drive out the small operators. So by far the biggest recipient of grocery food share is Walmart, with about a quarter of all food in the United States now being purchased at a Walmart, followed by Costco, Kroger, and then I think I had Albertsons that got cut off of there on the bottom. A fun fact that you can use with your friends from other states, if they think that grocery facts are fun, is that Minnesota is the only state in the country that has neither a Albertsons or a Kroger. Every other state has at least one, if not both. Some places they are by far the largest retailers, but Minnesota does not. That speaks very loudly to our strong independent network of community grocers who we are happy to support and to be the voice of. When you look here in the cities, right, all of those stores that I named that you see when you shop around, the Nolan's Foods, the Festival Foods, the Cub, right, those are all locally independent. And thankfully, Minnesotans tend to be, stick with what they know and what they like, which has kind of helped us. And I think that strong independent network gives you those choices, right? If you are here in Bloomington, you have several different stores that you can choose to, right? You each probably have your preference, right? Maybe you go to one or two, but you probably have that main one that's your go-to. And because of that, we have been able to keep out some of the larger operators from across the rest of the country. So why do we care about politics? As some of the reasons that I have mentioned. But I always kind of laugh when I left working at the house and started working for the grocers, and even before I started, I was talking to some relatives, and they're like, why do the grocers have a lobbyist? Like, what do they care about? It's like, well, when you think about it, in all of the different areas that come to a head at a grocery store. Agriculture, obviously with the food. We are also, retailers are licensed by the Department of Ag, so we do a lot of work with them. Obviously commerce, energy is a huge one, food waste, liquor laws, cannabis, all the fun stuff, lottery, all the things that you also can find in your local grocery store. Pharmacy, especially for smaller outstate independent operators, they are often the only pharmacist in town, which is another challenge for when those stores go out of business and now your seniors are having to travel to that 20, 30 miles to that next pharmacy in order to get their prescriptions filled. Plastic single-use bags, bottles, we've got different proposed taxes on or bringing a bottle deposit tax, like you see if you look on the can, and has Iowa and Michigan and the others, and Washington, the other states that have the bottle deposit, which is basically just an upfront tax that you pay. Your 12-pack of Coke, if it's a 10-cent deposit, will now be $1.20 more expensive overnight, and then you have to bring the bottles back to get your dime back every time. Recycling, SNAP, taxes, transportation. So there's so many different areas. I always kind of joke, the only thing we don't really care about at the Capitol is like K-12 education. That's not in our That's not in our budget. That's not in our purview. We do care a little bit about higher education, because we do have, through our foundation, we do have a job training program that we team up with Alexandria Technical College and Ridgewater out in Hutchinson, I believe, to do a meat cutting training program. But everything else we're pretty well in tune with. So I always kind of joke with people around the legislature. Like, if you're wondering what bills have been introduced, kind of what's out there that's important, let me know, because I have to read all of the bill introductions when they come out to make sure that none of them fall into any of these categories. And last session, we had over 10,000 bills that were introduced here in the state of Minnesota. And about 8,000 of them were bad ideas. So here I took this page off of my session preview webinar that I did for our members as to what topics we expected were going to come up in the 2026 legislative session. The antitrust and monopoly discussion that I kind of touched on with the buying power and the different aspects of Walmart's and the Targets and being dominant retailers and how that impacts retailers. The bottle deposit bill, different environmental regulations, a lot of food additive laws have been passed around the country, liquor laws, labor bills. Specifically, the Earned Sick and Safe Time and Paid Family Medical Leave laws that were passed by the DFL trifecta in 2023. We keep them on the list. We knew that they weren't going to change this year with Governor Walz still in office and the Senate DFL in charge, that they weren't going to repeal any of those, but we are continually reminding them of the cost of those programs and the complications of those programs and how they impact our members. Waste regulations, retail crime. Crime is a huge issue across the state, but especially here in the metro. Just a lot of frustration with our retailers, with the lack of accountability for the small number of people who continue to take advantage of retailers, and more of them are, right? We're not talking about a mom who's coming in and stealing milk and a loaf of bread. Our members are extremely proud of the work that they do with their local food shelves and food banks, donate millions of pounds of food every year to help feed our neighbors with food that is either about to go and be unable to be sold, but so often, other food drives and those types of things that they're doing in their community, the roundup programs that you see at the register and those types of things. But those aren't the type of people who we see coming and stealing. We see people who are stealing to take those items and then post them on Facebook, or be as brazen as to take them to a storefront that they've set up and then sell those items for profit. Can anyone guess what the two most common items for our members that were stolen during the pandemic that we saw walk out the door? Tide? Yeah. Toilet paper and laundry detergent. Yep. And you would see it. They'd be so brazen they will steal it. Sometimes they'll just go sell it in the parking lot. They'll just see somebody coming down and they'll say, "Hey, you want this for $10?" Right? That's $10 right in their pocket. But often you go online and you would see them. They would have these toilet paper and laundry soap bundles, they would call it, and they would be selling them online. So a lot of frustration. Some with, and a lot of that stems from the. In Minneapolis and St. Paul, the police force is very understaffed, and coming to a common theft crime is not always high on their priority list. But I was talking to one of our loss prevention officers in one of our stores, and he says, well, the problem is that when someone comes in and they steal an item, they're not afraid that they're going to be stopped by an employee, because largely stores have stopped doing that. They found that caused a lot of issues, and there were threats and violence against their team members. So they're not afraid that they're going to get stopped by an employee. If they are stopped or they approach them, they're not afraid that they're going to call the cops, because the cops don't usually come, so they've stopped calling. If they do call the cops, they're not afraid that the cops are actually going to show up. If the cops do show up, they're not afraid that they're actually going to get arrested. If they are arrested, they're not afraid that they're actually going to get charged. If they are charged, they're not afraid that they're actually going to end up going to trial, right? So just all of these different steps that one of these cases can fall apart. Unfortunately, these repeat offenders who are coming in and stealing items to resell them, they're just not afraid of any consequences because they generally don't see any. SNAP funding and food restrictions, swipe fee reforms, THC, and vendor collection allowance. You may or may not know this. Those of you who have operated businesses probably do, that retailers are the tax collectors for the state. When you buy an item that is taxable, the retailer collects that and then has to send that into the state. Well, if you're buying using a credit card, or which a high percentage of folks do, only something like 6 or 7% of all transactions are cash anymore, there is a percentage charged on that purchase. But when the retailer has to turn around and send that 6.5% or all the way up to almost 10% if you're in St. Paul, the retailer is being charged that swipe fee by the credit card company on that amount that needs to be remitted to the state. So we are working for a vendor collection allowance that would help. It wouldn't make them whole, right? It's because that number is in the hundreds of millions of dollars that retailers end up eating working as a tax collector for the state. So a little bit of a niche issue, I'm sorry. But these are just some of the items that have come up. The list is ever growing and always things that come out of the woodwork that you don't expect that you're going to have to deal with. But that is the name of the game, and we follow what the legislature wants to do whenever they bring up these bad ideas. But this was another slide that I took off of my session preview webinar, Earn Sick and Safe Time, Paid Family Leave, and just the general cost of doing business. Labor cost is up over 20% since the beginning of the pandemic, and especially for our members who are unionized and proud union workforces for many, many years. The cost is just different for one of those union shops versus a Target or a Walmart. So we're always pointing out that costs have increased. The cost of energy, of electricity, of refrigerant are all up 20 to 30%. Property taxes and theft are also a big contributing factor as well. And then obviously the economic competitiveness here in the state of Minnesota, and then how these policies impact small versus versus large business. But going back to the cost of doing business, I try to explain it to legislators, and some of them get it, right? We take legislators and candidates on store tours all around so they can get kind of a behind-the-scenes inside look at the operation of a store. And this was during the pandemic still, probably 2023, and I had a manager talking to a legislator, and they said, the increasing costs of food should not be a mystery. Come to the back room. I have my tracking spreadsheet where I have my 30 cost inputs, all the way from their wholesale costs to getting their food to labor, all the way down to getting their garbage hauled away, right, all the way down to the bottom. He said that's about 30 items long. It's like over the last 2 years, all of them have increased, right? Some as much as 20 or 30%. And if they've increased for the retailer, right, which alone is going to have an impact on the costs, you have to imagine the food industry and getting food from the field to a retail setting, how many different steps there are along the way, from the field to the harvester, to the food cleaner, to the food producer, to the packager, to the transportation company, all the way to get it to retail. If I'm having those increased costs, every single one of those operators along this conveyor belt is also seeing those costs. But the end consumer doesn't see that until they're at retail. So that is why you're seeing these increasing costs, and why, unfortunately, in this kind of age of inflation, I can't tell you that is going to abate anytime soon. I think there was a report, I think just yesterday, that came out about food inflation here the last month, and it was up, I think, another 4-something%, and a lot of that has to do with the cost of gas, right? Getting products. That doesn't just impact getting it from a food producer to a retailer, right? It's all the way back to the fertilizer, right? And the cost of the farm to produce the food. So there's a long chain of events before an item eventually gets to the grocery store. So now I'm going to switch a little bit into a couple of these case studies, and Don had asked me to talk about price gouging a little bit here. The state of Minnesota, along with 30 other states, do have price gouging laws. They typically come into effect during any kind of a state of emergency in those states. And there has also been several states that have had and opened investigations. Their attorney generals, typically in blue states, have had, right, they're looking for someone to blame for these increased costs, and they don't want to look at their own policies that they've passed in these states as to why this could possibly be happening, and they're not on the ground talking to folks like myself or retailers, pointing to the places where, yeah, you've passed this green energy bill here in Minnesota that we have to be completely green by 2040, and the utilities are putting in more solar and all these things that are driving up the cost of our electricity. That is just one of 10 examples of where the cost is increasing. So they're looking for someone to blame, so they say it must be the greedy grocer who's working on that 1.7% profit margin, right? They must be making out like bandits, which is not the case at all. And surprisingly, when they actually go and subpoena and take the data from these retailers, that's what they find. In Connecticut, the Attorney General looked into and got all the profit data and ran the numbers, and then kind of sheepishly had to come out with a report the next year to say, yeah, they're not doing it, which we could have saved them a lot of time and a lot of taxpayer money if they would have gone and talked to the Connecticut Grocers Association, which probably is a thing. They could have saved them a lot of time, but they wouldn't have gotten their political talking points in. So. Another thing that we hear a lot, and when we're talking about price gouging, they say, well, how come I can go to one store and a pound of strawberries is $6.99, but I go to Aldi and it's $2.99, right? Well, you're looking at two very different types of formats, right? And also it has a lot to do with that retailer's marketing strategy, right? If you go to a Kowalski's, you're at a high-end shopping experience. The cost of labor, the cost of that store is probably up a lot higher than it is, right, at kind of a bare bones Aldi where you can go and get things cheaper. there as well, right? Stores have different loss leaders, right? Some may be cheaper in the deli or cheaper in the meat section, right? But they got to make up for that somewhere else, right? They're all still operating under that small 1 to 2% operating cost, and how they choose to attract and retain their customers is up to that retailer. When you boil it down and get to their end numbers, they're all going to end up in that same strike zone of just a couple, 1 to 2% of profit margin. It's just they may be using a different category to get folks into the store. And then I hear this a lot too. Whenever you hear Walmart or Target or Whole Foods says, we're cutting prices on items, 50 items across our store. 50, and people are going, well, how can you do that? Why weren't you doing that all along, right? Kind of, if you have the ability to cut the price by $2, why weren't you, right? Were you ripping me off the whole time? It's like, no, they're just adjusting with the rest of their store to cover, right, the loss of revenue that they're going to get from cutting these items. So in the end, it all boils down, and the margins will end up being extremely similar. The idea of municipal grocery stores or socialized grocery stores, however you prefer to tag them, very interesting, especially here in Minneapolis where they brought it up last year. But we've had a few recent examples of just how this does not work. In Illinois in 2018, they spent $13.5 million on purchasing and operating 6 stores. 4 of them are now closed. I don't have data on the other 2, but I assume they're probably not far behind. Kansas City, Missouri, similar. There are some, I won't say funny, but there are some interesting news stories where they go to the grand opening of this store, and then almost immediately the store is struggling. They can't source their product. They're still more expensive than everybody else, and people are walking around seeing bare shelves, and they say, well, what's going on here? It's like, well, right, eventually you run out of other people's money, right? Isn't that how the comment about communism goes? Right, but ultimately it's up to providing a good product, maintaining and retaining your customer base. Where if you are a public store and you know you're going to be open no matter what, and if you run a deficit, well, we just got this extra pot of money. Eventually, it just doesn't work. Same in New York, right? They said Mamdani there said he wants to order or open up a store in every borough. And his quote, without having to pay rent or property taxes, they reduce overhead and pass on savings to customers. Which means, okay, I guess, so we're just not going to have to pay property taxes anymore, which is, right, another way of just taking money from the taxpayer, right, and getting it somewhere else. But that's the attitude. Minneapolis, as I said last year, they looked into it. I think they're doing a study. Our official position is, no, this is a bad idea. It won't work, and it just puts the city in competition with already existing and already struggling local stores. That's our official position. My unofficial position is try it. Go ahead. Go for it. But I would want detailed reports so we can watch them fail and see exactly just how much in the red they are running. But our official position is, no, it's a bad idea. And just one example of that is there's the North Market in Minneapolis, the Pillsbury United Fund, and the legislature put $8 million into starting that store and then propping it up over the years, and it was operating at a 20% loss. It is now currently closed. They say temporarily, and they plan to reopen it. If they do, I assume it will still probably be operating at a 20% loss. So little on municipal-run grocery stores. So our official position is they're a bad idea. They don't work, just to be clear. With that, I know I kind of rushed through, but I wanted to leave time for questions. Not always the sexiest of topics, but I think something that pertains to everyone. So it's and everyone always has a comment or their own experience, but open to questions.
So recently, obviously, we've all been using the self-checkout, sometimes I see people with 2 cartfuls, and I wonder, is there any kind of a statistic on what the theft rate is through the self-checkout system?
Yeah, I don't have one. I think it would vary, right? There's going to be a different from Baudette to Minneapolis as to what that would look like. And I know different stores have different strategies on how to try to prevent that. But right, that's the most common thing, is not just people walking through with large cartfuls, but it's, right, they're buying 6 apples and they just say they only have 1, right? Or people swapping stickers on the meat in the back, right? And they're, instead of this T-bone, they took some, chicken breast label and put it on there to make it cheaper. So I don't have any specific industry-wide data, but that happens, and it's a big issue. Go
ahead. Steve, back here. Have you given any study to the MAHA? The administration's trying to do healthier foods. Is that going to impact prices downstream?
Potentially, and when I had a bullet on food additives there that I kind of skipped through, and our position on food additives, and I don't think that would affect the price, but it would have costs associated to food producers, right? They would have to rework their products, right? Say a certain dye, right? A red dye, whatever. You got to take it out, and we're okay with that. But we would prefer to see it done at a federal level and not a state level, right? Markets with consolidation and right with how everything works, the markets are national, right? If Minnesota has a specific law that makes us an island, it could potentially price us out or cut us out of certain products if folks haven't adjusted their recipes and those types of things. So it would have an impact. We would prefer to see any changes on that end of things done at the federal level, but it is something that folks would have to adjust to.
Egg prices have come down dramatically. Do you have any insights into the beef market?
Meat, pork, and beef in general are kind of an interesting topic, just with how those industries operate, right, and how often it's the packagers and the slaughterhouses or the packagers specifically that may own some of those animals all the way through the entire process. I know we ran into an issue with that in COVID with a lot of the pigs, with the slaughterhouses being shut down and not being able to process the pigs, and then they were too big, so they had to just kill them and dump them, right? An unfortunate situation. I don't have great insight into beef specifically, but obviously that is one of the areas that has continued to climb. I know we eat a lot more chicken and pork in my house than we do beef. A lot of factors at play between prices and production, but I don't have any great statistics for you on that. Sorry.
I know we're really early, just a few months into the Family Leave Act in Minnesota, but just wondering, and I suppose it varies a lot between the larger establishments and the more mom and pop things, but just wondering if you have any early sort of feedback on how that works with regard to has been working in Minnesota with the grocery industry.
Yeah, sure. And it's been interesting, and it has been varied. I've talked to some of our members who say, we've had almost nobody use it, take advantage of it. We've had others that are like, I have people flying out the doors, right? As soon as they hear that this program is available and how wide open it is to get in and get approved. And the problems we're seeing is along with the income tax portion of it, or the payroll tax portion of it, is that the hole that is left in your staff, right? If you have 4 or 5 people that are out, how do you handle that, right? You're not going to go hire someone temporarily because in the program you have to hold this person's position open for them for when they come back. So the biggest thing that we're seeing is strain on current employees, right? When part of your team is gone and that spot isn't being filled, it just stretches everybody a little thinner, right? So in addition to the cost, we're seeing that. I have heard from our food production folks that they will have, and this also happened with Earn, Stick, and Save Time, and they can chart it that it's amazing, nice Fridays in the summer or like the weekend before deer hunting, that they have to shut down the plant because 30% of their workforce calls out sick, right? So the cost is there, right? That's kind of baked into the operating cost of the company, but we're seeing the biggest impacts are on the day-to-day. It's on the labor piece of it, less so the cost. It's the pressure put on the rest of the staff.
With the hopes that the price of gasoline will decline, is there any way that we could then see that impact on food prices?
You know, I don't know if you would see a dramatic reduction, right? I think you would see hopefully a calming. I would say up to this month with that latest food inflation report, it had been much more steady, right? It had been in that 1 to 2%, right? Kind of going along with everything else in the economy, because food is going to follow the rest of the economy, right? With not just gas, but energy prices and that whole bundle, and labor. So you're going to, as the nationwide CPE, right, or CPI, excuse me, is going to be at 1 or 2%. Food's going to be there too. Just food specifically jumped up this time around because of those gas prices. So I would hope that would calm and they would get in line with the rest of the inflation in the economy. But I don't see it going away.
I saw a news report on one of the local news stations about the legislature banning surveillance pricing. And could you explain what that is and where you stand on that?
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest and a little out of the blue issue of this session was surveillance pricing and electronic shelf labels. And part of the biggest problem was that they directly went after brick and mortar stores, where if you want to look at surveillance pricing, right, there's probably some discussion to be had with online sales, right, where you don't know if you're being offered the same price as someone else. When you're in the store, everyone's being offered the same price. There was kind of this fear about electronic shelf labels that they could be changed instantly, right? That the grocery store is tracking you going down the aisle, and they know that you're going to this item that you always buy, so they're going to go bump it up by a quarter, right? Which is not happening. Even with the electronic shelf labels that are there, they are not that technologically advanced. So a bit of a scare tactic that right? And it's another one of those, they're looking for people to blame for the cost of goods, and they want to say, oh, they're ripping you off again. Here's the way that they're doing it. If you would like to talk more about electronic shelf labels, I am fully vetted in that, and we can talk about it because I think we're getting the hook here. But anybody else who has questions too, I'll stick around in the back and we can.
A real quick one.
Yeah.
This 1.7% you talk about, you're talking about bottom line, or you're talking about revenue less cost of product? Where does that fit in?
That's a profit margin number.
So it's revenue less the cost of product?
Yes.
Not bottom line?
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Revenue. But thank you very much, everybody. Like I said, I'll hang out in the back for others who have questions.
Thank you, Steve. Now when you go home and go to the grocery store, don't forget what Steve had to tell you. Now we've got 2 cents for 2 minutes. Anybody in the audience want to make a relevant announcement? Is there anyone? One? Okay, good. Cindy.
Thanks, Terry. I'm Cindy Pugh. I'm your elected representative to the 6th Congressional District, and I don't have anything to report specifically on that today, but I would like to invite each of you or any of you to reach out to me to pass along, that I could pass along any information directly to Congressman Emmer's Chief of Staff. So I would be happy to do that. And I also, if you'd like my personal contact information, I have some of my business cards over on the counter. I noticed that this morning. I serve as a board member for the Child Protection League and would be happy to share any information with you about that too, but I have my cell phone on that business card. And speaking of, I attended the convention up in Duluth and was seated as a delegate. And so I gathered quite a bit of literature at the convention. And I also put that over on the counter. So if you already took a look at the counter, take a look again because there might be something there for you. And also I put a couple of other highlighted items in the stand-up stands over there. One is from the Center of American Experiment. They're hosting a block party at the state capitol from 12 until 2 on July the 25th. That's a Saturday, so that should be a lot of fun. And also there are dates over there for all of their events that they're hosting throughout the state of Minnesota on Minnesota Fraud, Follow the Money, and Connect the Dots. That's what that's called. And then lastly, I just wanted to share, I have 15 seconds left, so I just wanted to share my personal support for Mike Lindell for governor. I've known Mike. I've known him for a long time. I also know Phil Parrish. I think they'll make a great team. So thank you.
One more.
I'm from SD 55, which is Burnsville, Savage, and we have a meet and greet tonight for our 2 House candidates and our Senate candidate at the Trove Brewery in Burnsville, 6:30 to 8.
Thank you for filling out your surveys. We are doing an emailed survey to everyone who's getting our notifications, so if anybody's on the webinar, you will also get that, and also everyone in the room will get a slightly different version of the survey. We're asking everybody to respond to that. It really will help the board. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you for coming. Folks, it was important. Cindy mentioned the Center of the American Experiment block party, basically to celebrate our 250 years. When you go back and you look at history, there's few countries that last 250 years. Our country is facing that. I remember, and I'm sure a lot of you remember back in 1976 when we celebrated 200 years, and by that 50 years went awful quick. just awful quick for me. I actually went to Philadelphia for a fancy meeting and giving a paper, but the big thing really was we were celebrating the birthday of the United States. We do that every year on July 4th. But by the time we meet again, July 4th will have been passed. Anyway, I want to just ask you to pay attention to this country. President Reagan pointed out that every generation must spill blood to pay for this country. We didn't pay it just once. When Washington crossed the Delaware and made that bold move to win our freedom, it wasn't the only time. We had to do it again in the Civil War at Gettysburg and how many other places. We had to do it again in Vietnam, and we had to do it again in World War I, World War II, and Afghanistan, and in Bangladesh, and we're doing it time and time again. And it's for your grandchildren and their children. And so pay attention to this country. Go home, go home peacefully, drive carefully. We will see you next week, next month. I failed. We do have the drawing for the prizes. I failed to get them out. I did get the ticket. No, I got the prize tickets out. But you want to? Yeah, you want to choose? Two of them. Okay. Okay, and the last four numbers: 6, 9, 6, 0. 6960. Okay, there's a winner. Good. And the other number is 6971. 6971. I have a winner. Yeah. Okay, God bless you all. Thank you for coming this morning. Bring your neighbor, a friend. We'll see you next.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For more information, please visit republicanseniorsmn.com. While visiting our website, you can click on the video tab to watch videos of past meetings. Also, look for other tabs that bring you to our live player and other video programs. Or, on YouTube, search for Republican Seniors of Minnesota